So this is a big topic. I'm going to call it more like a theme, maybe for the month of March, because we have a lot to talk about here. And if without leads, you have no business. So it's probably the most important topic of all, I would say. So today we're going to mainly focus on properties or opportunities really off the MLS. So really kind of incorporating both, like how do investors work correctly, right, with properties that are on MLS, and then how do agents leverage other agents' listings and things on the MLS to bring value to their investor clients, right? Because it's all the same stuff, right? It's leveraging what we see on the MLS to build our businesses, regardless if you're an investor trying to, buy flip opportunities, or if you're an agent looking to work with investors. Same idea, same activities. That's kind of the things we'll cover today. So how about we let Eric, why don't you start with the first thing, right? Because I remember when I set up CT Homes back in the day, and this was our primary focus. So, remind you again, I got into the business as a flipper first, right? So when I moved to San Diego, we set up our team at CT Homes. The biggest challenge for most investors on the beginning is overhead. Okay, they're trying to figure out how to maintain cash flow, and it takes months to get paid on a flip and all that stuff. On the beginning, it's very challenging to kind of scale. But what we did early on is we hired interns, okay, which is a whole nother conversation we could have on a different call. But what I'm getting at is we picked as our primary focus of acquiring opportunities for us to buy was off the MLS and with agents, right? So we literally built our whole business on the beginning of all agent opportunities that were listing properties. And the first thing we did is set up filters. So how about I let Eric do that, because I know he works with a lot more investors right now actively that are searching for properties. I actually don't do that much. I have actually Jadelle, I don't know if I see her. Jadelle from my team is on the call. She does that on my team a lot. I personally don't. I don't go look for properties for a lot of my investors. I list a lot of the flips. So I'm going to let Eric kind of speak into the filters and all that jazz.
Yeah, so on-market properties are that's near and dear to my heart. I love them. That's how I've actually found a lot of the flips that we've done over the past couple of years. And I know last year, our inventory is still really low. Last year it was even lower than it is right now. And I actually did a couple meetings. I was the speaker for a couple of the meetups in our area, because people are like, how in the world are you finding stuff on market? And I'm like, it's all about just being creative. So the first thing that we do is we get an MLS search set up, and our MLS, every MLS is a little bit different. So kind of knowing what the MLS is going to have in there, we have a keyword section. And what I did is I spent probably 2 or 3 hours. I put my email on there, the areas I was looking in, zip codes, counties, anything that I was looking in. And then I started just typing out what you would see on a normal property that needs work. So estate, probate, seller is motivated. All right, I would do the word like motivated, cash, carpet allowance, fire. I'm trying to think of what other words I would do, because I had so many. New paint. And then what we do is we build it out as big as we can. You'd separate every word, and if one of those words popped up in a search, the house would get sent to me. I'm still on that email to this day. Investor only, handyman special, cash only, special financing, anything, because on any normal day, I'll get 6 or 7 properties sent to my email, and I can kind of vet through the property. I can click it and say, hey, this one's already rehabbed, not going to be our cup of tea, keep going, and then I'll check all 6 or 7. When I would do that, I would actually start to find properties that needed work. The seller was motivated. The properties had been sitting. They've just done a price reduction, or they're listed as estate or foundation issues or fire. And then I would call the agent immediately, and I would just say, tell me more about your property. What do we have going on? And I could you kind of want to vet the agent to begin with. So I'd find out exactly why they're selling. And if they're like, look, they still want top dollar, it needs work, but it's, just cosmetic, then I'd say, thank you, I appreciate it. See if it sits on the market, I'd save it. But if they were like, this house needs, it needs Jesus, then I'd be like, perfect, I'm on my way, I'm driving there right now. Then once I walk it, that's when I walk it, get the numbers in, run the ARBs, and do all that as well. So filters are basically going to be what is going to come through on the MLS. And you don't want to see every property on the MLS. So if you have those filters in place for what you're looking for, it works out perfectly. If you can't handle a fire property or like don't do it. Don't put it in the filter. But if you can, then that's a great way to kind of see the properties immediately.
Yeah, what I would add is definitely don't go look at properties without first calling the listing agent and getting in touch with them. Because you might find yourself wasting a lot of time doing that. So first thing, I think what hopefully you heard is Eric tries to call that listing agent immediately. And I'll tell you why this is so important. And it's impossible to do if you don't have notifications set up with filters the way Eric just described, right? Because there's no way you could be sitting on the MLS 24 hours just watching it, right? And refreshing your search criteria. Like,
absolutely,
that's stupid. And I'll share a story. So a friend of mine / now business partner, because I also have a land wholesaling business. So before we had the land wholesaling business, he joined my team here in Southern California, and he was an investor / agent. So he was attracted to my team because of that's what we do. Like, we speak that language, right? So he wanted to be around the same type of community. But he has not flipped a home when we met. And what got in his way was a lot of fear that he didn't have all his ducks in a row, right? Common mindset challenge that a lot of new investors have, and realtors, right? To be quite frank. Regardless, I told him, this strategy, like MLS is your best friend, right? You got to start calling agents, building rapport, finding out the motivation. And the gold is when you find an out of area agent. If you see an out of area agent, I can tell you there is a high chance that that agent will become very loyal to you, especially if you do what I recommend in most cases, is even though you're a licensed agent calling as an investor in one example, don't try to make the commission on that purchase. Waive the commission and let the listing agent represent you if it's allowed in your state, okay? And in most states it's allowed. Or if you're an agent calling on behalf of an investor, which a lot of agents that are listening to this, that's what they want to do. They want to be out there looking for opportunities for investors that they're working with so they can build that business, right? That repeat business that we're talking about. One thing to also consider is to allow potentially the listing agent also represent your client, or waive your buyer's side commission, because you're going to get that listing on the back end, right? So it's not that you're not going to make money. It's more about how do you position your investor client to win, right? Yeah. That's the mindset. And in this case, this example, my friend Peter, he was a licensed investor. He called the listing agent. He was the first one to call on this property. And because he was the first one, and because he told her he was licensed and that he can go and look at this property without her, and she was out of the LA area and we're in San Diego, that's a 2.5-hour drive in traffic, okay? She was excited to hear that he can go and look at this property without her, and that he asked her if she would be open to representing him. So she was all in. She was like, heck yeah, not only were you the first one, you're a licensed investor, you don't want to represent yourself, you're going to let me make the money, and you can go to the property, so you're not even going to bother me, right? I don't have to drive down there to open the door for you, right? Mm-hmm. It was like a win. And for us, that's a huge win, because it's an out of area agent, and we know the pain points, right? So she became loyal to us automatically, or in this case to Peter, because he's the one that built rapport, built trust, went to the property. And because of that, we ended up getting that deal, and we wholesaled it, or we call it a wholetail, and we made $53,000 on it, and we literally did no work to it, right? Which is a whole nother story, which we'll cover one day as well when we get into like the case study maybe theme for the month, because we have a lot of case studies between Eric and I.
Yeah.
But the point of that story really was the fact that he was the first one. He allowed the agent to represent him, even though he was licensed, right? And because of that, and the agent being out of area, we got the deal. And those things exist. If you look for them, they exist out there, and filters are so important. So I can't stress that enough. But I think another thing we talked about earlier, Eric, is finding properties that have been sitting on the market. You like doing that a lot, right?
Yeah, so we try to look for anything that's been on. So our average days on market, you need to know your average days on market. Our average days on market is 4 days. So anything that's been on for more than 3 weeks, sellers start to squirm a little bit. There starts to be a, why is it not selling? Now, if it's been on for 3 weeks, and I know that I've gotten to the point with our area where I know roughly what the ARV is going to be without even running it. So if I'm like, hey, that ARV doesn't make sense, that's why it's sitting. But if it's price low and it's been sitting, I always call to try and get the motivation. I always try to call, no matter what, if it's on market, you should be calling the listing agent and figuring out what's going on, because sometimes the listing agent is just going to be terrible to deal with. You know, hey, we're looking for highest and best, don't even come at me with a low offer. I've had listing agents who are also like, look, like, bring me whatever you have. This needs to sell. It's not selling right now. What do you got for me? And those are my favorite, because then I can go, okay, I've got a cash offer. It's going to close quick. No inspections, no contingencies. What does your seller need? Because we're trying to figure out what the seller's motivation is. And we've gotten properties where we had a contract that was lower than everybody else's, but we also let the seller have post occupancy, or we delayed closing, or we've had sellers who are like, honestly, my house is, I'm not cleaning it out. And we've been like, yeah, we're okay with that. That's fine. Yeah. Is it going to take 10, 40-foot dumpsters to clean this thing out? Absolutely. Do I want to do it? Absolutely not. But you know, if that's what's going to get us the property, let's do it. So you want to, and I do the same thing with my retail clients as well. You need to find why the seller is selling, what the motivations are, and what's the most important, because I think you'd be surprised to find out more often than not in real estate, the motivation is not just money. And for a lot of sellers, money is maybe option, or like 1A and 1B. Money's usually like 1B, and like make sure they move on time and it's seamless is maybe 1A, or making sure that they can get some post occupancy so they're not stressed out, or the contingency for them to find a home. So you need to call that listing agent. It's a huge difference.
Hey, Eric, one thing I would say, the best question that we always had our interns, our acquisitions guys ask, which they still do to this day, is outside of price, what are the things that are the sellers looking for? So always saying outside of price, what terms is your client looking for? And even give an example, like does your client want to stay in the home for a week after closing? Like, kind of lead them. Don't always assume that the agents are going to just tell you. They might even forget like what their own client told them until you bring it up, right? So lead them with a good question. If you ask good questions, you'll get better questions, you get better answers, which in turns becomes exactly what shows up on the offer. And I can tell you, when a seller sees exactly what they always wished for on paper, they're like, what the heck? That's exactly what we wanted. Well, it's because we asked the right question. That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
And we always, I tell everybody this, I told everybody on my team too, we always stroke the listing agent's ego, because I'm telling you, agents have the biggest ego of anybody you know. Like, I like to think that I don't, but that's probably my ego getting in the way. I have conversations and I will call them and I'll be like, this is the most beautiful list. You did so good. I mean, yeah, I can see you in the mirror in the bathroom in the pictures, but that's professional. That looks great. Like, how is this not so? And agents eat it up all the time. Like, they're just like, thank you so much. I'm like, I see your name everywhere. Like, you're just crushing it. Hey, by the way, my client's really interested. You know, we're great to work with. And I cannot tell you, honest to God, how many times we have had offers accepted because we make an agent laugh, or we like are just like personal. They want to work with somebody that for the next 30 days, they're not going to be like, every time I have to call this person, I hate them. So we do that all the time. It works all the time. And it's so funny to me. But also, so with MLS offers, one of our on market properties, one of the other things that we have done a really good job at finding that value add is properties. And Randy, you kind of said this a little bit. If an agent is an out of town agent and the property is mislisted, so our MLS pulls property details from the auditor's website. It's, these properties, some of them have been around since late 1800s, early 1900s. The auditor site is not always accurate. So we'll walk homes. Like I just did a house recently this week where the auditor site had the house that I'm listing as a 1.5, 1,400 square feet. Where in actuality, it's a condo. It's a 3.5, 2,600 square feet. If you had an agent that did not know that, and you had a seller, and they listed it, the price would be 150 compared to 300. It's literally double.
Wait,
So
let me ask you this. I'm like interested in this because we on our end, we put in the square footage in our MLS and the bedroom count. It doesn't automatically populate from the tax records.
Yeah.
So you're saying like when you're inputting a listing, it automatically takes the information that's on a tax record. So if an agent messes up and doesn't correct it, then it just stays that way?
You can change it as an agent. There's a back door to change it, but when you put a listing in, it automatically will auto populate with auditor's information. So they'll go through and it's happened on a ton of listings of ours where we're like, this square footage is incorrect or this is incorrect. So we go in and make the changes. But we've walked a ton of homes where it's like one of the best examples I can give people is normally a 3-bedroom home is going to be minimum 1,400 square feet. Anything smaller, the rooms are going to be really tight. The living room and kitchen are going to be really tight. It's going to feel really closed off. We get a lot of houses in this area that are 2-1s that are 1,500 square feet. And you might have an investor and an agent that walks that property and they go, look, comps are 170 for a 2-1. I can't do it. I can't make it work. We go, okay, well, there's a 3rd bedroom right here and it doesn't feel weird or wonky. And there's an extra bathroom right here. So instead of 170, we're 230. Well, it's a lot better to put in an offer that's higher than everybody else because we found this hidden value with the property. There's external factors that also affect properties, but functional factors also make a huge difference on that resale.
I'm still blown away. So you're telling me if I'm as a listing agent in your area, like there's agents that literally don't change the room count to the correct room count and they allow it to go active with the tax information.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. You got to stroke the ego, like, oh man, this is like.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, I know agents are lazy. I mean, I've seen the photos of the agents that take photos with their phone and they're all crooked and they're in the mirror. Like I've seen those, so I guess I'm not surprised. So maybe like what would be a good way, like searching for specifically maybe a property that's 1,300 and higher in square footage and has 2 bedrooms or less listed.
It's a great way to find a deal. And it's as long as it works. If it's a 2-bedroom and it's like, say, a cape, like capes are really common up here, that square footage, the upstairs bedroom is going to count as a bedroom. The square footage counts, even though it's angled ceilings, it's not going to work as well. And it's going to take a little bit more digging, but typically a 2-1 that's a minimum of 1,300 square feet. Like the house that we bought was a 2-1. And it's 1,394 square feet. We came in, knocked down a wall and built up a bedroom. And our ARV went from, it's the house we live in now, went from 170 to probably about 240 just with the area we're in. The 3rd bedroom is super important. Makes a huge difference. So
it's interesting because like in San Diego, we actually see the opposite. We see agents put more bedrooms because there's a lot of illegal enclosures or additions, right?
We get that too.
So we'll see like 4 bedrooms, but on a tax record, when you actually look at the tax records, it's maybe 3, right?
Yeah.
And the square footage is less by 300. So it's backwards in our end, but you're saying it's somewhat maybe not that common, but in your area, it's actually the opposite can happen where agents are lazy and then don't actually change it. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then,
that's huge.
Yeah. And then another thing market wise, if you're in between 2 markets, so we're in Cincinnati and Dayton is about 30 minutes north of us. And we're two different MLSs. We have the Dayton MLS and the Cincinnati MLS. I cannot tell you how many times we have had Dayton MLS properties listed in Cincinnati, which means no agent in Cincinnati is receiving those properties. None of their clients that are set up on a search are receiving those properties. And it's very common that if a property listed in Cincinnati is only in the Dayton MLS, that it sits for a really long time and goes for a lower price. So we look for those all the time. And we do that for retail clients as well. So it's like, it's mislisted. It should really be in the Cincinnati MLS. It's the Cincinnati region, but some Dayton agent got it. It was like 3% on like 250. Let's do it. Listed it, and nobody's got eyes on the property.
Wow, that's good. And let me ask you this. Have you ever waived your commission on the front end as an agent representing an investor?
I have done it like once, and I like it. That's why I like working with investors, because there's a double dip in commission. I mean, that's just the truth. That's one of the motivations that gets me to want to work with investors. I love the listing side as well, but it's really nice too if it's $150,000 commission up front. Where that does change, if I call the listing agent and they're like, send us your highest and best, and it's a property my client wants, it does stand out. And I've done it to say, just waive my commission. It can either go to you or back to the seller. I give them the option. Most of the time, they're just going to say, hey, he's going to have me represent them because they want the 6%. But there has been times where they've said, hey, we'll go ahead and kick it back to the seller. But even in those situations when I've waived it, we've done strong offers. Our market was really crazy. We still didn't get the property. So I think I've waived it once. And it just depends.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then I think we also talked about package deals. You found some of those for some of your clients as well. Maybe unpack that for a bit.
So we get a lot of investors who are wanting to sell off more than one property at a time. They're selling off 4, 5, 6 rentals. So I actually took one of my investors, a house in my neighborhood was for sale. I think it was listed at 90,000. And then there was a house in Liberty Township, which anybody familiar with this area will know. Everybody else is like, what are you talking about? That one was listed at 200. We had an ARV around 340 on that. So I called the agent. I go, hey, we're interested. We're gonna be putting in an offer. He goes, good luck, got multiple offers. Some of them are a lot higher than I expected. And I was like, cool, glad to hear it, not surprised. Went and looked at the one in my neighborhood because I'm like, it's the one in my neighborhood. Like, I might as well see what's going on. And I noticed it's the same agent. So I call him and I'm like, what's going on with this one? He's like, well, that one has no offers. And I was like, okay, weird that both of them listed the same day. And he's like, actually, it's the same seller. It's an estate sale. He's just looking at selling them both. And I was like, would it help our offer at all if we just did one offer for both of them? And then we have a question I'll answer here in a second. If I did one offer for both of them, would it help that, we just do that? So we offered a cash offer at ask for both of them. The one in my neighborhood we got for 90. The one in Liberty Township we got for 200. The one in my neighborhood we wholesaled the next day for 115. The other one we got for 200. We were all in at 250, and we ended up selling it for, I think, 340 or 350. It was about a year and a half ago. So all because I called the agent. And I actually had some agents in my office that had clients that had offered on it. And they're like, how did you get it? Like, your offer's lowered. I'm like, well, it's just same seller wants it to be easy. I'm making his life easier, and it's cash, and he doesn't have to wait, and he's getting what he wants.
Hey, Becky, so you asked at EXP, because not everybody here is at EXP. So this is open to any agent, any investor, but I'll answer your question real quick. You could waive, technically, if you would like to, you could waive your commission, which would net the seller more money. Or what you could do, like we mentioned, is ask the listing agent if they want to represent you, which actually helps the chances of you getting that property dramatically, like by a lot, if it's allowed in your state, right? And I usually would leave that option. I think Eric mentioned it. I would leave that to the listing agent to decide, like, hey, I want to get the property. I want to work with you. I want to work with your seller, provide what best terms. If you can help me with that, and you could represent me, Mr. Agent, or I can waive my commission, whatever you think is better, right? If I waive my commission, the net to the seller is higher. if you represent me, then you can make both sides. And I leave it to them to decide, like, are they after the money, or they want to get more money for the seller? Right?
Yeah.
Let the agent decide, right?
You typically find out really quickly that none of them none of them take the money for the seller. Like it's
Yeah,
always like, oh, we came to 6% for you. So
which now kind of brings me to this next thing. When you are an investor and you're going directly to the agent, or if you're an agent going directly to the listing agent and wanting to even say, hey, you can represent my client, which this is rare, but I'm telling you, if you need to do it to make the numbers work, it's worth it. As an agent saying to another listing agent, hey, I have a client that wants to buy this house, and I'm willing to have you represent my client because I'm going to get the listing on the back end. And I'd rather have my client have this property. They really love it. So I can also help them on the back end, and everybody wins. You win, Mr. Agent. So that's one way of doing it. However, if you're an investor and you're going directly to the agent, I can guarantee you there's the good agents. I know I would, right? And you tell me, hey, I want you to represent me, Randy, on this listing that you have. That's a fixer. And I'll be like, great. Well, let me ask you, I would somewhere in the conversation, I would work in this question. How about on the back end, once it's rehab, what is your plan with the property? Are you planning on selling it or keeping it? Oh, I'm going to sell it. I'm like, great. Is there an opportunity for me to maybe also work and help you on the listing side later? And I'll just shut up, right? Let them answer. Because as an agent, I want to see, why not? If I can make another commission on the back end, a third commission, I'm going to ask that question every time. But if they don't ask that question, if the listing agent doesn't bring it up, don't bring it up, right? Unless you want to, because maybe you don't have an agent that you care to give the listing to, or you don't want to list it yourself. Different story. Then yeah, of course, use that as a carrot, right, to get that property. But if you want to list it yourself, or if you're an investor that has a relationship with a good agent and you want to kind of, feed them some business and give them that listing, like we talked about a week ago, don't bring that up, right? And if they do, here's how I always handle it. Like, look, so now I'm an investor, right? Calling that listing agent. So I'm changing my hat in this case. And if I called, in this case, let's say Eric is the listing agent and he's got the fixer, and I called you, Eric, and I told you like, hey, I'm an investor, I want to buy this property. And you asked me, hey, can I get it on the back end and list it for you? I would say to you, Eric, I'm like, yes, look, we're open to that always, right? Bottom line, we have to work the numbers in. I have a relationship with an agent that we pay them a flat fee or whatever the structure is. I don't disclose it, right? What that is, but we do it for a very, pretty low amount of money because we do a lot of business with that agent. However, if we can make the numbers work with you, absolutely. What do you charge?
Yeah,
because I have to put that into my deal calculator to spit out my offer, and that money has to come from somewhere. So my offer is going to be lower naturally because I'm going to have to give you a realist based on what the number you want. So what is it? Right. So I'll be very upfront right from the beginning how it works. Right. It's just numbers. Right. And I would say that if we need to potentially go up in price, Mr. Agent, in this case, Eric, if you're that listing agent, can we agree, Eric, that maybe we can remove the realist so I can be competitive on the offer amount so we can at least still close the deal with you representing me as the buyer's agent? Is that fair, Eric?
yeah.
Right. So I would ask that up front, right? I want him to be on the same page with me that, hey, if you're going to come back, Eric, and with a counter and ask me to go up, I can't give you that realist then, right? Because I'm going to sell it myself if I'm a licensed investor, or I'm going to give it to one of my agents that will do it for, $3,000 or whatever your agreement is. And then it's easy. If you set the expectations early on on the beginning, then it's an easy conversation to come back and be like, yeah, I can go up another 10 grand. However, like we talked about first time, Eric, we need to remove that realist. Is that cool? And I'll go up 10 grand and let's close this deal. Will that get me the deal, Eric?
Yeah.
And now Eric is still motivated because he's representing me and the seller. So instead of making 3 commissions, he still makes 2. That's a win. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and we're going to do a breakout room here in a couple minutes because I know we're wanting to give more time. And I don't, how many people do we have in that are going to go? Do we know how many people we're going to do?
We have 17, but really 15. So we'll probably do 2 rooms.
Okay, perfect. So building relationships is going to be your most important one when you're looking for on-market properties. If you have an agent that can have those relationships, like we get agents that call us and say, hey, we have a deal, would you be interested? Because they know we'll close. We have investors that'll close cash. So we're those first people that they're calling because they know that it'll close. But even if you're not in that position yet, as an agent, what you need to do is go around and have conversations and say, hey, like maybe it's a property that needs some work, and say, hey, we're probably not going to work number wise on this. Do you have anything else that's coming up that needs some work? Do you have anything else that you would want a cash offer on? Like building those relationships and growing it is what's going to get it. I can promise you, we've seen it in this market, especially in the Cincinnati area. If you're just an agent that you think you're going to go around, write a bunch of offers, not build relationships, not appeal to that seller or that agent, really it's appealing to the agent. That's the person of communication, that listing agent. It's going to be almost impossible to get an offer. I mean, even me, if I'm listing a property and there's 2 offers that are completely identical, and I've got one where the agent built connection, had a conversation, I thought this is going to be an easy one to work. Or on the other offer, not a single word was said besides sent email, please let me know received via dot loop or text. I'm never going to go with that offer. Like it just doesn't matter, because it's like, why would I never talk to the person. I don't know how easy this and I tell my sellers, I had a really good conversation with this agent. They seem like the agent knows what they're doing. We've looked at their transaction history. We know that this is going to go really smooth. So that would be like my biggest thing on market is, you can find deals, you can work it creatively. There's a million ways to do it, but it's always going to come back in this business to what relationships are you building to make it work.
Well said. And but I still think you should comment on this last point, because I think a lot of realtors don't even know that they're able to do this. And investors, probably many of them don't either. Options that you can literally submit, a contract with 2 options or even 3 options for the seller to pick, maybe, because we discussed this prior to the call. If you can describe that like you just did for someone.
Yeah, so it's actually like it's based off of psychological factors. If you just give somebody a question where they can say yes or no, they're going to be more inclined to say yes or no. So if you give somebody a question and it's a yes or no question, then they're just going to say that those 2 options. If you give somebody 4 different options and you say, well, you can take A, B, or C, or we'll say 3, A, B, or C, instead of them thinking no immediately, that comes in their mind when you're offering lower on something, they go, A is really appealing, B kind of fits our scenario a little bit better, C nets us the highest amount. So what we do when we're submitting offers for investors, if they want, we call the listing agent, we put together kind of, hey, they would like more time in the house. So we go, okay, well, we can do a really strong offer where we're lower on the property, but they get more time in the house. Or we can go a little bit higher on the offer, but it's immediate occupancy. Or we can do where it's even higher, or whatever it's going to be, you can kind of throw in a 3rd option. And sometimes you even want to throw in a throwaway option, because they immediately look at that and they go, no, I don't want that. And then they go to the other 2 and they go, but these are a lot better than the option I just tossed out. And we've gotten a ton of offers doing that. People are less likely to say flat out no, and they're more likely to say, hey, option B is really appealing, we think we're going to go with that. So it's a great way to kind of stand out offer wise. What
I heard, I think most common scenario would be is like if someone wants you to take it with a tenant in it, then your investor client might be like, yeah, I'll give them 200 for it. Or if they deliver a property vacant without the tenant, then I'll give them 220. Let's just say. In that example, because of course, if I'm an investor, I'm going to think of the worst case scenario. Yeah, like they're paying now, but what if they stop paying, right? And I have to evict them. So it's like the tenant might be a great tenant up to that point, and everything can change. So I think it puts a little bit, the ball back into the seller's court. Like, okay, well, do you want to give the notice now and deal with the tenant that you're telling me you like now, and make an extra 10, 20 grand, or do you not care? And then the truth will really come out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And it's just like if I asked you something and I was asking you for something, if I gave you a yes or no question, you're more likely to say no. Like if I was like, hey Randy, would you give me $100 right now? You're like, no, why would I do that? But if I was like, hey Randy, could you give me $100 and I'll give you a pen or something like that and give you multiple options? When you kind of give multiple options, they think harder into it. If you're giving just one option, it's really easy to say no and then move on. So you're kind of already throwing in what your counters would be into it, and then you can shape it where it fits your investor best.
Cool. Good stuff. And then lastly, I'll finish on this before we do breakout is I can't stress enough how important it is to track all your offers. Like we have spreadsheets on spreadsheets about everything that we look at, from the filters, like we talked about, it gets dumped, all the properties get dumped into a spreadsheet. The ones we call, we mark it. The ones we offer, we track it. And I can't tell you enough how important that is, because most of the properties that our investing company that I used to run picks up is on the follow-up, because the first offer falls out. And when the first offer falls out, the motivation of the seller goes up. Always. Like in most cases, I wouldn't say always, like 90% of the time, right? Some sellers are so stubborn, they're going to ask for more money. Like there's crazy scenarios, right? But in most cases, when the first offer falls out, the seller gets motivation goes up. You can slip in there with your lower offer that was either submitted already because they allowed you to submit it, or you submitted then because you kept following up. And little tip for you, there's plugins out there that you can attach to your Gmail account that tracks who opens emails. And some are free, some are paid. It's worth every penny. And we will literally get a notification when one of the listing agents opens our email with our offer terms that we, emailed to her or him a month ago. Why would that agent open our email again? Well, because most likely their current escrow is falling out or is about to fall out. And we literally would then pick up the phone and be like, hey, Kathy, how's the escrow going? How are things going? Is everything okay? And the reason we do that is because we got the notification that she just opened our email again, right? From a month ago. And Kathy on the other end, be like, wow, I was just thinking about you guys. This is crazy. Like they get caught off guard and like, they're like, oh my goodness. And we're like, no way. Right. And then boom, then we get the true story, like what's going on? Like, why did she really open the email? She'll tell you, right? And I can't stress enough how important follow-up is and tracking. And now the technology is so advanced. Leverage it to your advantage. Like let it do the work for you. Like that's literally an automated follow-up, setting up notifications when someone opens your email again.
Yeah.
Right.
Before we go to breakout rooms too, I was just going to say this on the waiving the commission on the buyer side. If the market were to flip and we were to have a lot of inventory and it wasn't as much work to find on market deals, I would be more inclined to work with, cutting it. So I was thinking about that too. I mean, right now, if you're trying to find markets off or on market properties, it's a ton of work. So, this isn't going to be something where you're just going to go out this week, write 2 offers and then get a property at 40% of the ARV, and then you're going to make 100,000. Like this, you go through a lot of properties, you run a lot of comps, you do a lot of digging, you call a lot of agents. So just to throw that in there, then we'll do breakout rooms.
Awesome. So guys, so now we're in the time of the session where we're going to do breakout rooms. Last week, we were asked to give you a little bit more time. So that's our goal. So you can actually, get across what it is that you might need. Things to think about as far as in your, we're going to try to give you 2 minutes each within your small breakout room of about 6-7 people or so. What did you learn that you can now maybe implement from today? Or what are you doing currently that might be working for you that you can share with the group? Or maybe you have a need, right? What is it that you are looking to solve that maybe others can give you some tips? One thing I say, just don't hijack the whole break room, right? Be conscious of the time And if you need to go and discuss things offline later, like that's also an opportunity, like share your contact information so you can contact that person afterwards. If they had really a desire to share a lot of good things with you based on your need or your question, take it offline, right? So you don't hijack the whole room for everybody and everybody then gets a chance to speak. So we're going to do that now. You're going to have a pop-up on your screen. Please accept it and you'll be put into that breakout room. So it's an opportunity to network and kind of dive deeper into the things I just discussed. So we'll see you guys probably in about 10, 15 minutes. And we'll wrap up with takeaways and shares from that. See you soon.
I like in the breakout room. There we go.
Cool. All right.
Think
So
we have everything?
we got left. All right. So any takeaways, any good shares? Anyone want to share anything from your breakout rooms or anything that's on your mind, really? I want to pick on Kevin. Come on, Kevin.
Well, one thing that you shared, Randy, was actually something that I just started implementing, which is searching the MLS using keywords. So putting in, fixer, cash buyer, investor, things like that. And yeah, there is stuff out there.
Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff.
I get the emails all the time from wholesalers and everybody else.
Those are always fun.
You get emails from wholesalers, okay? Are you an
Yeah.
investor or you're a realtor or both?
I'm an investor and agent,
Okay.
but I haven't had anything yet.
And
I'm
what's
still
your
learning.
what's your goal? Are your goal is to buy flips for yourself, or are you working with flippers?
I would like to buy and hold.
Okay.
Okay, got it. Okay, yeah. So don't discount those wholesale opportunities because literally
Oh, yeah.
a lot of them are junk.
I'm not discounting.
Yeah, a lot of them are junk, but there's some every now and then an amazing one comes
yeah.
up. Like my buddy, I don't know if I shared this, but I think I mentioned this last time. One of my friends that I play pickleball got a direct message on Instagram from a wholesaler, and he bought it. We just sold it, and he made 135,000 on it. Just closed on it last week. Like his biggest deal, and that came from a wholesaler. It's crazy. Anybody else want to share anything? Nicole, I see your hand.
Okay. Yeah, something Jadelle said about finding more realtors to work with to find these deals for. And she's talked about working with her title company and lenders and letting them know that she works with investors to get more investor clients that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They would know. They do the closings.
Yeah. So basically, what I just, all my, title reps, lenders, even that I work with, and even investors that kind of fell out during COVID still send me people to work with because they know that I work primarily with investors. And I also shared too, and working with other agents, even though you are licensed, agents hear investor, they automatically think deep pockets. They're looking for that commission. Okay. But you need to vet these agents. And that list I sent you, Randy, is a good example of questions to ask. I sent it to you, I think last week or something.
Oh yeah.
It's good questions to ask agents when you're kind of weeding out the field, because you have a lot of hungry agents out there, especially with the low inventory, and they need to do the work. So Randy will tell you, I do the work. I mean, you do the legwork, and you make those phone calls and you run those numbers and all that good stuff. So if you want to share that list of questions, you can. It's up to you.
I just sent that. I added it in a chat. Your PDF. I had it on my desktop ready to do actually at one of these meetings. So there you go.
Okay, yeah, I've been working on this since I started working with you, Randy, in 2013. So I'm constantly adding more questions as well as the market shifts and changes. And everything is moving in real estate all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, Jadelle is one of those, agents that jumped in and kind of carved her niche in the investor community. And I introduced her to serious investors, but I also tell her like, hey, not everybody I introduce you is gonna be do much. And they're gonna be sitting on the sidelines, they're gonna be fearful. So you gotta really get to know them and also see what fears they have and help them overcome those fears.
Yeah.
But some just won't take that step. So you gotta, spend
Yeah,
your
there's
energy
been
with the ones that are willing to kind of take the steps, start submitting offers. Like that's how it starts.
Exactly. I've actually told some investors that I can no longer work with you because I'm spending all this time and energy trying to get you to jump off the ledge, and they just never act. So if you're not gonna act after even just I'm pretty generous, and Randy tells me that I am, but I'll give it like 6 months. And if they're not acting on anything or writing offers or going and looking at property, then I just have to cut ties.
Yeah. There's the 80-20 rule that 80% of everything, the rule breaks down. It's like actually over the entire world, there's a whole science behind it, but most of 80% is done by 20%. So 80% of the work, agent wise or investor wise, is done by 20% of the people. And I've like always kept that because it's spot on. 1/5 of our agents do the majority of the transactions in Cincinnati. 1/5 of our investors, almost spot on, do all of the transactions. So you want to try and put yourself in that 1/5 and do the 80% and then find the others in it.
Yeah. Very true. Anyone else? Last share before we wrap up on time. I hear is it Andy? Andy, I just found out that you're Eric's business coach. Pleasure to meet you, Andy.
I am Eric's tremendous guy. I've known Eric for a long time and love working with him. He's a good guy. And I saw this and I was like, I need to hop on and see what you guys are all about. I like it. It's good. Very good.
Thank you.
Awesome. I know you coach realtors. I'm just curious, do any of the realtors you talk to also besides Eric that are in that investor niche, or is it not really common like we tend to believe?
What's interesting is about from who I coach in the agent population, about 10 to 20% of them invest. And I think a lot of them, it's interesting, they don't do it. They have all the knowledge, they have the information, but they don't take the step. They don't take the leap. And I think some of that has to do with income. They're a little nervous about their month-to-month income. But I wish more of them did, because it's, wealth building comes from real estate and from investing, and not as many do as I would like to see. That's for sure.
Got it. Yeah. Awesome. Good stuff. Well, thank you, everybody. It's 2 p.m. We want to wrap things up on time. On my end, 2 p.m. On your end, could be 3, could be 4, could be 5.
5, yeah.
Depending where you're at. But yeah, we're going to continue this theme. Next week, we're going to go into more on the direct mail. So going directly to the seller, and what does that look like? Show some samples, and how do we integrate you as an agent with the investor and really like collaborate together so you can build both of your businesses. So that's going to be next week's topic. And invite a friend, realtor, investor, doesn't matter. Like we cover both. It's about bringing that synergy together between those two buckets, right, within our real estate industry. So see you guys in a week. Thanks.
See you, everybody.
Thanks, Eric.
Everybody.
Bye.